just in terms of my career, graduated school. I founded a pharmacy that looked after rest homes and hospitals, so looking after the older adults, if you will. I've also just got a love for technology, so when this thing with the internet turned up, I got really interested and started one of the first online pharmacies in New Zealand. I also brought the first robotic dispensing to New Zealand as well, and that was to help just with looking after the older people. I actually ended up selling the pharmacy one in NTS back in 2012 and was a consultant and then a CEO for a biotech company called Malaysia. And I left there 3 years ago and then started SAW, which is we'll talk about today. And then more recently doing some work with Singularity University in America and co-founded a not-for-profit called the Wellness Access Institute, which I will share with you about also. And just because I was a little bored, how we age better. And so this book is essentially a healthy living strategy book using the latest science to work out how we actually live healthier with what we know now. And products that can help you age better. So this is probably, I've got a mission and vision, but to me this is the most important thing here. The company's purpose is about challenging or changing the way that we think about aging and how we actually experience aging as well. Because it doesn't matter what you do in life, no matter what your genes have given you, you can age better, or we all can. Okay, so I started the company with this vision, and I got talking to a few of my friends and people that I've been really fortunate to meet over the last decade as I was going around the world with my previous company, and they all got quite excited about it as well. So we've got a really fantastic scientific advisory board that just continues to grow. What are the problems that we're solving with SAW? Well, we've got a really, really big problem coming at us, and there's lots of problems. There's climate change, there's global warming, there's blah, blah, sustainability. But there's one that people are not really talking about a lot, and that is that there are going to be 2 billion humans on this planet over the age of 60 in just over 25 years, right? So that's a really big problem if we keep going the way we're going. Right now in America, 17% of GDP is spent on health care, and is mainly consumed towards the end of your life, right? It will be like the last wee while. If we keep growing the way we're growing into what we're going to, unless we change what we're doing, it's going to be really unaffordable for us to, when we all turn up at 50 and we're all a little bit broken and sore. And there's a statistic that over half of people over the age of 60 have multiple health problems. So this is the challenge that we're up against, and we need to shift things around a bit. And just as a baseline, right now wellness supplement market is $250 billion. That's just the US, and obviously this is also going to be expanding. So right now there's a paradigm shift that's happening, and it's driven by the fact that we understand more about healthcare, but it's also being driven because we've got to make some change. So these are the thought leaders looking at it, going, how are we going to get to 2050 and how are we going to do it well? So the big shift is to preventative healthcare, and the best way I can describe it is that right now we have a break fix industry. So you keep going until you fall over, then you go to the hospital patches you up, picks you back out until you fall over again, and so on. There's a better way of doing it, and that is preventative wellness. And the best way to think about it is if you've got a car or a motorbike, every 6 months you take it in for a service. Why do you do that? One, because it's really expensive if something goes wrong, and it's also really dangerous if something goes wrong. So we need to shift how we think about this engine and start to actually get really serious about how do we look after it and keep it well, so that actually we don't have some of these problems. Because you don't just turn up with a heart attack or a liver problem. This is something that's been happening slowly for 20 years before it. And if we can identify what that is and get ahead of it, we may not even have those problems as we get older. What's also shifting is that consumers are starting to understand that we can slow the aging process down. And this is a relatively new concept. The funny old thing is actually we've been doing it for the last 200 years. In the last, up until 200 years ago, lifespan for humanity was around about 30 to 40. But the last 200 years, we've doubled it and more because we're starting to understand our environment, we're starting to understand what makes us tick better. And what's exciting is perhaps the next 20, 30 years we may get to double it again. And of course, technology is just driving this because we're moving so quickly with machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's enabling us to unpack exactly what's happening, and the result is really quite exciting. So why a focus on aging? Well, there's two reasons. The first one here is the benefits to society for extending our lives. And someone got out a calculator and did the math, and it's a remarkable number. If I can get this to work. $38 trillion a year for each year that we extend our health span. So that's the actual numbers and the value. And of course, somebody smart will calculate out and say, okay, we can do that from there in 10 years, 367 trillion. So that's just America. That's not the benefit for the rest of the world. So there's some really powerful reasons why it's worth extending the health span. And just to sort of give you a bit more industry information beyond the SOW, there's just massive capital going into this right now. There's a Saudi Arabian company or organisation called Evolution who have dedicated $1 billion a year for the foreseeable looking at how do we extend health span. The people behind it, Amazon, Jeff Bezos and co, they've set up labs called Altos Labs, $3 billion funding on that. Google's put in billions, lots of money to extend. And we know when humans put attention on something that we will start to resolve it. There's lots of different ways that people are working out how we can extend health span. The one that's really interesting to me, and that's probably 20 years away, is something called DNA reprogramming. We've got a really interesting test here called a DNA age, right? What researchers have worked out is that there is a clock on our DNA which slowly ticks along, and it actually defines the speed at which we age. And what we know is that you can personally reprogram it by doing healthy things like going to the gym, having a good diet, and taking supplements. But what they're looking at is actually perhaps we can actually radically shift that clock backwards. And so in the future, your future self might get to 50 and go in and go to the dry cleaners, if you will, and get your cellular reprogramming back to 40, and then we just stay there, or we choose what age we want to be. So these are some of the technologies that are coming, and it's not science fiction. This is actually happening in the lab right now. We talked about earlier the benefits in terms of economic value that is unleashed as this happens. Everybody thinks there are too many people on the planet, but the reality is fertility rates are dropping, and so we might find that this technology of health span extension turns up at just the right time in terms of us having problems with our demographics. And yeah, 10 to 20 years is what the current thinking is. And this is really interesting because in the lab with mice, they're reprogramming organs, they're reprogramming skin and tissue. So this is literally not science fiction, it's happening right now. And this is the opportunity. And my belief is that preventative wellness is actually the next $1 trillion platform. Because we all age, and we all want to age better. And I could give everybody in this room 10 years of extra health span. Now, what does that mean to you? But I think it's not just 10, I think it's 20. And I think actually it's 40, and then it could be, and then who knows after that. So, what we do need to do as a society is actually prepare for this. We're really good at predicting things in a line, but not so well from an exponential perspective. And who's to say that it's only going to be maybe 10, 20 years before we see radical life extension? This coming era of longevity. And it's not about getting old and staying old for longer. It's about being in really good shape for much, much longer. And this is what's within our grasp. So I said there were two reasons why you want to focus on helping extend lifespan and health span. One is the financial benefits of it. The second is that the biggest risk for health problems is actually age. And what the thought leaders are saying right now is that cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, these are actually syndromes or symptoms of the syndrome of aging. And if we can actually slow aging, then we actually prevent those diseases. So we're all healthier for much, much longer. This is the number that we all have now. So it's a little shocking for someone who's 53, and it tells me I've got 10 more years of health span, which is the amount of time that I can expect to be healthy. And then after that, it's a decline. So it's getting more and more important to me that I extend that health span. And of course, if you extend your health span, you're going to extend your lifespan as well. And the perfect scenario is, they call it squaring the curve. You are healthy, 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 and then that's the end. Rather than right now, where we're experiencing a gradual decline. And those last few years are uncomfortable, and we need to be better. We can do better. All right, so you saw that book earlier. It was called Harnessing the 9 Hallmarks of Aging. In this journal, back in 2013, so we're just about to celebrate its 10th anniversary, they wrote a paper called The Hallmarks of Aging. And in that paper, they described the 9 areas that drive aging in ourselves. And as a pharmacist, I looked at that and thought, well, it's not just 9 hallmarks, there's 9 targets that we can look at to modulate aging. So I set about doing something about that. And we have developed at SOW a range of products which target the hallmarks of aging and target them at a time that we need them, because all these hallmarks, they don't just turn up at one time, they turn up over our lives, and I'll show you what I mean. So the first thing is that our body is made of cells. Consumers are starting to understand the concept of cellular wellness and cellular health here. Those building blocks are really important for us. If something goes wrong, then it causes disease. And so really the focus is on how we get these little cells to do what they can do and do them well. So we focused on the cell system, and this is what we built. The first one is cell 1, and I call it sunscreen for our cells. We put sunscreen on our face because it prevents UV damage to our cells. And actually what's being damaged is our DNA. Our DNA it breaks in our cells 100,000 times a day per cell. Right? That's a lot of damage. Now that's not anything to worry about, because our body has really good ways of looking at it and monitoring it and repairing it. That's the idea though, is that if we can put sunscreen on our cells, then we're slowing the aging process down. So this is fundamentally what we're doing here. There's a really, really amazing ingredient in this product called Hovermine. I won't go into too much detail, but it's the first time that we've been able to slow the long-term effects of oxidative damage on our cells. What we're focusing here on is DNA. So our telomeres are little caps on the end of our chromosomes. The longer they are, the better it is for our health. Genomic instability, this is just where our DNA just naturally breaks, and we repair it, but over our lifetime, those breaks don't get repaired quite as well. And the last one is something called epigenetic alterations. That's a fancy way of saying we've got a clock on our DNA, and so what we want to do here is just support that process and make sure it's as good as possible. Next one is something called cell 2, and this is addressing the energy decline that we get as we age. We have these tiny little engines in our cells that convert the air that we breathe and the food that we eat into energy our cells can use. And just like your cell phone, here we have to replace every couple of years because the battery starts to run down. Our mitochondria run down as well, and it starts to happen in our 30s. And you don't notice it, you're all good until you hit your 40s, and then you start to notice something's happening in terms of maybe less energy, maybe you don't recover from an illness so well. We need mitochondria because our cells need energy, and if the mitochondria aren't working so well, then our cells become compromised in their function. So what we've done there is we've focused on something that is a really clever formula which approaches looking after your mitochondria in a really interesting way. And then lastly, so this is the focuses on the mitochondria. We will have pools of stem cells which need mitochondrial work as well. And then we also have what I call the internet of the body. It's basically the way that messages are sent around the body. All of those things start to decline at that time. And then lastly, we have cell 3, and that is designed to be taken in your 40s. And what happens as we get into our 40s and beyond is that we get a build-up of cells that aren't helpful to us. Like some people call them zombie cells, another name for senescent cells. And we have them normally when we're young, but as we get older, we can't get rid of them so much. So what happens is that inflammation starts to build up in our body. So this formula here is just designed to help support healthy levels of senescent cells and also other housekeeping things. So you take cell 1 in your 20s, protect, cell 2 in your 30s, plus cell 1 for the energy, and then cell 1, 2 and 3 in your 40s, and this covers off the hallmarks of aging. And of course, we don't stop there. It's really important to look after your cells. We have 11 other body systems that break down as we age. So what we've got is other products which target different parts of our bodies. And so the range essentially is starting to build out like this. So we have the skeletal system, and we have something which is about how do we keep this skeletal system working really well. We, as a philosophy, we work with researchers around the world, the Science Advisory Board that you saw there, to actually formulate the latest research and technology and evidence-based supplements that actually help you age better. So this is a really neat formula. You can, quite often as you get older, you get pains in your joints, or worse. This formula actually is clinically shown to slow that damage and reverse that pain within 1 day, but up to 6 days, and it's just something which just helps you support your joints as you age. We've worked with a leading researcher in Alzheimer's to formulate this particular product. Dr. Alan Snow has worked in this area for 30, even 40 years, has a lot of patents around how do we help the body with Alzheimer's. And so this one here is actually focused more on memory and supporting that as you age. We have lots of blood vessels in our bodies, and just like I've lost a little here as I've got a little older, we actually have a furry lining on the inside of our blood vessels. It's called the glycocalyx, and we lose that as we age. And have you ever seen seaweed in the water? How it does this? It's almost, the glycocalyx is almost like seaweed inside our blood vessels. When your heart beat pumps, it pushes the seaweed this way, and the little glycocalyx, and when it actually causes the glycocalyx to bend, which causes the body to release nitric oxide, which is the chemical the body uses to relax the blood vessels. So we've got this perfect way of keeping our blood pressure working well. As we age, that gets reduced, which is why we have more blood pressure as we get older, why our blood vessels get a little bit more firm, if you will. So this is a collaboration with a Japanese company who have worked out a way to help us restore the levels of the glycocalyx product, which has just been it's like such an exciting product. This is a collaboration between SAW and a biotech company based out of Canada. They've worked out how to isolate the immune properties of egg yolk, which sounds a little interesting. But when you take this, it goes into your stomach and actually helps lower the pathogen burden inside your stomach. And this just means our immune system has much more bandwidth to deal with all the things that we're encountering out there in the world, with viruses and bacteria. But it's also really interesting because it helps with immune repair as well. So if we have an injury, it's our immune system that actually stitches things back together. So what athletes are finding is they actually recover faster when they take this product. And then lastly, today we talk about is our product BBC1 tone. As we get older, we have an issue with something called sarcopenia. This is lowering the muscle mass in our bodies as we age. But we also find that we're putting on extra weight as well. So this product is we're very, very proud of it because it not only helps you rebuild muscle, but it also helps you burn fat. And so from an older adult perspective, this just helps maintain a youthful body composition. But the key ingredient here has been used in hospitals for 20 years and has only just been made available because of the patent that's come off it. And it's designed, when it was used in the hospital, if you were bedridden, it would slow the amount of muscle that you would lose from being bedridden. So for people like us that take it and we're moving around, it actually helps us gain muscle a little easier than perhaps it would be if you were just going to the gym by yourself. And so it's a really effective way to actually tone your body. And you can take it and not go to the gym, but you can get a result if you do. So I think that's it. Lastly, I do want to talk about the Wellness Access Institute. Wellness Access Institute is a not-for-profit. I co-founded it with Warren Yu last year, and we did it for two reasons. One is that there's so much research and science coming through right now that it's really important to get it out to consumers as quickly as possible. So the access and why the Wellness Access Institute is about how do we get all these breakthroughs and accelerate the speed from science to society. How do we do that? Because it can take so long for these breakthroughs to come through and we're missing opportunities. The second reason is that we need to have a conversation at a government level and at a community level about how do we, as humans, take advantage of what we know around the things that can make us healthy. A great example is how much sugar is sitting in the supermarket right now when we go there. We know that sugar is actually incredibly bad for our bodies, yet we continue to pile it in and really no one's doing a lot about it. I think that if we can find ways and have conversations around how do we lower the amount of sugar that's in our diets, that will have the same effect as the reduction in smoking has had in terms of health benefits. And it's a really worthwhile cause because we can get healthier people, the amount of resource that's going to be spent on diabetes, on healthcare is going to come down. So this is a really worthwhile goal. So it's about having those conversations.